Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is your Wednesday one-shot featuring Kenma Kozume and a female listener. I don't really know what to class this as. It's a little bit of fluff, but it's also something a bit different from our usual shy Kenma. But regardless, I hope you enjoy. This is Kenma x female listener for the game. We need someone to play the villain in the play, a classmate of yours commented. You're the one being kidnapped, so who do you think would play the best villain role? You hummed, chin tucked between your thumb and finger. I don't know. You looked around the room of people, eyes darting to each of them to size them up individually. I know who would make a good villain, Kuro said suddenly, walking over to you and the classmate. Who? You asked. And what are you doing here? You're not even in our class. Kenma, he replied with a devious look on his face. Kenma? My boyfriend, Kozume Kenma. You have met him, haven't you? You asked with a surprised look on your face. He nodded. You'll do a good job. You hummed again. I'm not sure what your angle is, Kuro, but if you can get him to play the part and play it well, then go for it. But we need to win this year, so he needs to do an amazing performance. Don't worry, he'll nail it, Kuro replied with another smirk before turning and walking off to go and find your boyfriend. You shook your head as you watched him go. Kuro left the classroom and walked calmly to the equipment shed, then pulled the door open and looked in. It was dark and quiet. Well, quiet except for the sound of furiously clicking thumbs on a gaming console. I thought I'd find you here, Puddinghead, Kuro said as he stepped in. Everyone's organising roles for the play. Not interested, came the reply. I figured as much, Kuro sighed, stepping into the shed and closing the door behind him. That's why I've come to ask you personally. There was silence for a bit, then Kenma's thumbs smashed the buttons, obviously fighting a boss, and then the tapping noises ceased and a sigh escaped his lips. I'm not going to be in the play, Kenma announced to Kuro from behind the box that he had plopped down behind. Hey, you know that limited edition game that you've been saving for? Kuro suddenly asked in a bold voice. Silence reigned for a bit. Yeah, Kenma replied dubiously. Well, I actually bought it the other day, Kuro commented casually. More silence. And? Kenma asked. Well, I don't really play games that much, Kuro replied, withholding the smirk that he so dearly wanted to dish out along with that line. And you're going to use it as leverage to try and get me to play in the play? Kenma asked in a deadpan voice. They don't call you the brain of Nakoma for nothing, Kuro replied with a chuckle, amused that Kenma had seen right through his plan. What role? Kenma asked, popping his head up from behind the box to look at Kuro. Villain. You need to kidnap your girlfriend. She's the victim. Kenma stood up. And you'll give me the game if I play the role? Yes, if you play it well. Kenma nodded and stepped out from behind the box and walked past Kuro to the door, a silently determined look on his face. Back inside, you were still trying to find someone to play the villain. Yamamoto, you shouted to the dyed, mohawked volleyball player that you'd gotten to know through Kenma. Will you play the villain for us? Poor Yamamoto blushed and quickly looked down. He can't, Yin, he's not in our class, someone called out. You grunted with annoyance. Just then the classroom door slid open and there stood Kenma, his feline-esque irises looking at you. You were surprised to see him standing there, with Kuro appearing behind him, complete with smirk on his face. You looked from your boyfriend to Kuro, then back to your boyfriend again. You're actually here? Kenma stepped silently into the classroom and looked at the classmate who was directing the play. Are we practicing? He asked him, ignoring your comment. I'm the villain. Okay, let's give it a go, the classmate replied, pointing to the makeshift stage that was set up. Okay, so you need to kidnap Yin, Kenma? You raised your hand sheepishly. Yeah, that's me. Kenma looked at you and nodded. And you need to be convincing because we need to win, the classmate added in. Kenma shot him a look and then walked to the stage and hopped up on it. Okay guys, let's do scene 4, the kidnapping of Yin, the classmate called to those around. You shrugged and walked over to the stage and jumped up beside Kenma. You'd better do a good job, you commented lowly to him. Okay, and action, the classmate in charge yelled once everyone was in position. Suddenly Kenma grabbed you and pulled your back to his front, one of his hands clamping down around your mouth as he held you fast. No sudden moves, he called to the band of other classmates who were supposed to be your rescuers. or you'll regret it. You won't get away with this, one called. I already have, he snickered as he pulled you back with him, dragging you to the side of the stage. You were shocked, to say the least, at his sudden outburst. You hadn't seen this side of Kenma before, but you were kind of into it. He was actually pretty strong when he wanted to be. He pulled you back with him to the side of the stage and you tried to struggle a bit to make it look more legit, which in turn made him grip you harder. Oh wow, he's actually super hot when he's acting dominant, you thought. No one follow me, Kenma announced, taking you off stage. Those aren't the lines, are they? Someone commented from beside the classmate that was running the show, and he looked down at the dialogue lines and shook his head. Nope, but he's very convincing, so I'll let it slide. The day of the play came and your class had 3 sessions marked out for the play, one in the morning, one after lunch, and the last one at the end of the day for the entire school. You had successfully completed the first 2 plays and were now gearing up for the last one. So, you're doing a great job, Kuro said as he entered the backstage and leered at Kenma. Just one more play to go and this is all yours. He held up the game that he had promised Kenma and your boyfriend's eyes nearly fell out of his head as he nodded rapidly. Good, Kuro chuckled. Pretty soon the play commenced and Kenma was doing an amazing job. Then came time for the part where he had successfully taken you hostage and was holding you at his hideout. So, Kenma said in a low voice as he walked slowly towards where you were tied up on stage. Are you going to talk? Never, you scowled at him. You can't make me talk. Kenma crouched down in front of you and stared you down, his unwavering, piercing gaze making butterflies jump up in your stomach. Oh, can't I? He asked slowly, reaching out to caress your face. For a second you gave in, and you slightly nuzzled into his hand, but it was roughly cut short when he grabbed your face and pulled it up close to his. Start talking, he uttered. The butterflies in your stomach flipped over and your mouth ran dry as you stared up at him. Line! The in-charge hissed at you from behind the curtains. Yin, you line! You blinked a few times trying to remember what you were supposed to say, but at that point your rescuers arrived and an all-out battle broke out between Kenma and them. It was so realistic that Kenma even smashed one of their plastic swords with his own. Whoa, he's really into this, you thought as you watched him act. As soon as the play had finished though, he disappeared, and you stood on stage bowing to the applause as you looked around to find him. You could see Kuro at the back of the room clapping, but still no Kenma, and once the show had ended you made a beeline for the Nakoma volleyball captain to ask if he knew where Kenma had gone. Hey, you seen Kozume? He's disappeared. Oh, yeah, check the shed, Kuro replied with a smirk. You gave him a quizzical look and left, jogging out the back door towards the shed. As you pushed the door open, you heard the unmistakable sound of Kenma's fingers tapping buttons and waited for your eyes to adjust in the darkness before walking in. Kozu, you here? You asked into the darkened shed. He hummed. What you doing? You asked. Playing a new game, he replied. You followed the sound of his voice and walked around the box and looked down. Around Kenma were parts of a ripped open packet of a new game, and you tilted your head curiously. Where did you get this? Kuro gave it to me for acting, he replied without looking up at you. Wait, so he bribed you? Yeah, he replied, still without looking. Oh, I kind of liked your dominant side. It was really hot, you said softly. Guess I got to bribe you too to get to see it again. Suddenly Kenma stood up and grabbed you by the arm, then yanked you into himself and planted his lips on yours. You don't need to bribe me, he said lowly, all of his focus on you. Just then his game loaded and he looked down at it. Oh, it's loaded. And that's the end. Oh, to see Kenma's dom side. We've seen it in the anime, so it does exist, but I wish we'd see it a bit more. Anyway, stay tuned for the next one shot next Wednesday. It's going to be Yamamoto, so hopefully you enjoy that one when it comes out. See you then.